Hey, hello, my name is Selena.
And my name's Theoni, and you are listening to Piping Hot.
You guys, we are a hot mess today. Okay, it's been a week.
No, it's literally been a week, bro. I am unwell right now. My hair looks freaking crazy. I did the hairstyle yesterday for the rooftop bar that I went to, like where I took my tiny curling iron and I made like the really tiny curls, which looks great. But I woke up this morning and my hair looked freaking crazy, and I can't brush it out because then it'll just look worse. So now I'm left with whatever kind of situation is happening. But yeah, I'm tired.
And yeah, you're tired, but this episode is going to be one of the longest ones ever because our book episodes are always so long. They're always 1,000 years long.
Literally 10,000 years. Oh my God. I'm literally gonna... Oh my gosh. Okay. How was your week?
It was good. It was good. I mean, it was busy, but I don't know. Nothing notable. I'm just living for the weekends now, really. Like
literally that's being an adult.
Yeah. But no, my family came to visit me this weekend and I went shopping with my mom yesterday. So I got new makeup stuff, new skincare stuff, so I'm really
I need
excited.
a haul, Selena.
Oh, crap. Okay, I'll send you a picture.
She goes, oh, crap. No, because I love... That's something we do, Selena and I. Like, I feel like if we go shopping or, like, go to, like, Ulta or something, we always send, like, a Snapchat video of our hauls. I live for them.
Yes, I live for your H&M hauls. Because every single time you show me, I'm like, oh, my gosh, I have to go to H&M now. Like, I have to go.
No, H&M... I feel like I either find nothing or I find everything. Yeah. Like, there's no in between.
Yeah, so. It's a hit or miss. But
yeah, now I need to go to H&M. Okay. Oh, my week was very exhausting. Yeah. And just crazy. Otherwise, my week was just really tiring. Yeah. And... what did I do? Friday night, I feel like I did something, but I probably did nothing. And then yesterday, I went to Home Goods with my friend, and we went out to lunch, and I had half a greasy burger. It was really gross, which is why I didn't eat a lot. And then I went to the rooftop bar, which is really fun. A little weird, but mostly fun. And today, I went to Target, and I finished cleaning out my old apartment, so everything's done.
Nice.
Like, officially, so I'm officially here now. So I left my keys and, like, everything like that, and I returned the Wi-Fi equipment. This is a really boring story, but that's what I did today, and that's my life.
Good. No, have all your other roommates moved out? Like, is it now done?
One of my roommates, she's on her way. Kira's on her way to Seattle now, and then the other one is not moved out yet, so she'll be leaving in the next couple days.
Got it. Okay. What are you drinking today?
Yes. Okay. This is actually very exciting. It's a new kind of tea. So
okay,
it's the blood orange, organic, from Trader Joe's, and it's really good, actually.
The way you laughed. I'm sorry.
Because I felt very fancy because it's organic and I'm healthy or something. I don't know.
Oh my god.
What are you drinking?
I'm drinking that tea that I got when you were here, the chamomile vanilla manuka honey. I don't know. It was the first thing that I saw when I opened my like tea cabinet. I was like, I don't care. I'm just gonna do it.
Whenever you bring up that kind of tea, you always sound a little miserable, like you don't enjoy it.
I do. I enjoy it more than the one that you left behind.
God, that's so gross. Yeah, I'm surprised you haven't thrown it out yet. To be honest, like I would have thrown that out.
I just have a collection of tea. I need to organize it.
Dude, same. We had some mice in our kitchen at the new place.
Already?
Literally already in our cabinet. And ate some of our food. So we texted our landlord right away and we were like, please, for the love of God, come fix it. So someone's coming on Tuesday in the morning to fix it and deal with the issue. But we were like, we're not.
What the heck?
We're not dealing with this.
That's so annoying. It's so annoying. Is it like one of the cabinets aren't like sealed and that's how they can get in.
Well, we were looking and I don't see any like holes, but also mice get in spaces that literally anything. Yep. So I don't know what's going on, but yeah, my roommates and I were like, absolutely not. Yeah. Do I say literally weird?
No.
Because Caitlin was telling me the other day that she's like, you say literally. And I was like, do I really? I was like, do I really sound like that?
So you say it sometimes, but that's only when you're like really passionate about something and you like we're both agreeing on something and you're like, literally. But that's only when you're like really passionate about something, you know, like.
Fair. It's like the word slurs together. I can't even like talk fast enough to say it correctly. Oh my Lord.
Oh, wait. So funny. I meant to text you this, but do you remember that TikTok that I sent you of that guy basically being like stop the guy basically, it's like a meme of like, oh, how people read books, and like he's reading it and he shuts it and he's like, oh my gosh, and he like walks away, and I was like, oh my God, this is like me, literally me. Literally yesterday Jack sent that TikTok to me and he was like, this is you, and I told him, I was like, I sent that same exact TikTok to Theoni a week ago, like.
Oh, that's so funny. He knows you so well.
I know. I was like, oh my gosh, sorry. Well, especially
because it is you.
Yeah. I mean, especially with the book that we're talking about today, he had to sleep next to me as I read with my little book light, squealing silently at like midnight. Like, sorry. He has work the next day, but I'm like, sorry.
Sorry, I gotta read the book. So tough.
Yeah, really.
Oh. What pop culture stuff do you have today? The thing is, I already know the answer.
I have no pop culture today, which is ironic because we're a pop culture podcast and we have nothing this week. But also, to my defense, I was like very, very engrossed in this book and life and just trying to like get stuff done. Yes. But yeah, I have nothing. What about you?
No, I don't have anything either. So, maybe we need to change what kind of podcast this is because legit, I have nothing. But that's okay. I also don't feel like there was a lot that I heard about this week. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Oh, you know what? The thing is, though, is that we already talked about this. Everything that's been on my For You page on TikTok has been about Don't Worry, Darling. But we already talked about that. And so, because the movie's going to be released soon, so it's like, well, I don't want to talk about it because we already talked about it last week. But that entire thing is a shit show.
No, literally. I want to document. I saw a TikTok comment that said, I would rather watch a documentary of Don't Worry, Darling than like the actual movie.
Yes.
And I agree.
Yeah.
Olivia's looking shadier and shadier by the minute. Especially Shia LaBeouf exposed her.
Yeah. He brought receipts. He was ready.
He brought receipts.
He was ready.
He said, I think the heck not.
Yeah, exactly. So. And I shared, I sent a couple TikToks to you about what he revealed, and then also her video that she sent to Shia. And I was like, honey, this is looking really bad. I don't think this is the press that you want. Like, it's just really bad.
It is really bad. That's that. So should we jump into our topic of the day? I feel like such a failure.
No, this is our podcast. We can do whatever we want. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
What?
Sorry. I'm just like, okay. Anyways, today we are talking about the one and only new novel by Ali Hazelwood called Love on the Brain. And I am very, 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 very excited to know all of your thoughts about Dr. Levi Ward. I just need all of them. I just need all of them. Okay, listeners, you need to understand that when me and Theoni were reading this, we didn't send any comments, no audio messages to each other while we were reading this. So what you'll hear today is the first time that we're talking about it, which is very, very different because whenever we read books, we're always sending text messages and audio messages. So I am so excited to hear your thoughts.
I know. I'm excited to hear yours too because it's literally been painful to not share stuff.
Oh, so painful. Like I felt sick not
being
able to like scream to you.
I know. Like certain scenes, I was like, oh my God. Okay. Do we want to give overall thoughts first?
I have some overall thoughts. Do you have some?
Probably.
Okay.
But you say yours and I'll jump in.
Okay. Immediately, I was very, very impressed with Ali Hazelwood. I think she stepped up her game from The Love Hypothesis and her little novellas that she released this past year or whatever it was. And the reason why I say that, why I'm so impressed, is because immediately I could feel the stakes more in this book than compared to The Love Hypothesis. The Love Hypothesis, it was just like, oh, well, I gotta date Adam Carlson to like save my friend Anne and da-da-da. I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. But with Love on the Brain, I was like, oh no, B has to do this. She has to do this or she's going to fail and her career is going to be down the drain or whatever. So it felt a lot more believable than compared to Olive and Adam. Don't get me wrong. I love Olive and Adam and I will freaking die for them every single day. But I can recognize that Ali Hazelwood's stakes in that book weren't as good as the Love on the Brain because it was just, it felt like there was no point of return for either of them. And that's why I liked it so much because it was believable.
Okay, that part, yes, I agree. The stakes definitely were more intense and like palpable.
Yes.
But I can't say that I like this as much as I like The Love Hypothesis.
Oh, me neither.
Okay.
Because as we'll get through it, you'll see that. Don't get me wrong. Love Levi, but Adam is my homeboy. Like I can't.
Adam is my homeboy.
I like can't like. Yes, Levi is so special and B is so cute and quirky and her voice jumps off the page so incredibly, but it's like I can't leave Olive and Adam behind. Like I just can't. I can't.
I know. I also just feel like Levi was like I liked him, but this was supposed to be like an enemies to lovers thing. And I just didn't believe that it was like really enemies to lovers. Like from the first chapter, I was like, he doesn't hate her. Like the whole, like throughout the whole thing, I knew immediately that he never disliked her.
Me neither, but that's because I knew it was a Ali Hazelwood book, and that kind of trope is always kind of her forte of like the guy secretly loves her for years and da da da, you know. But I will say I did truly hate Levi up until probably like chapter 7 or chapter 8, and that's when it flipped for me, where it's like, oh, it's no longer enemies to lovers. They're just friends. Like they're just, they have to work together. Also, just random too, I haven't read an Ali Hazelwood book in so long, but that's also because she only had one out. This is her second. And her novellas aren't, you can't compare her novellas to anything because novellas are like 100 freaking pages, not even. I forgot how much she weaves things in and how much she brings them back. And it just made me remember The Love Hypothesis. I was like, oh my God. Like I just forget how much thought she puts into everything that they mention. And it was just so fun, like piecing things together. And yeah.
That part I do like about her writing a lot.
Yes.
But overall, I feel like to some degree it was kind of similar to The Love Hypothesis, which was like, I think why I had a hard time with that at some points, because I was like, I feel like I'm reading the same story. Like I definitely felt like there were a lot of similarities between Levi and like Adam, and also a lot of similarities between B and Olive. And so it's like, to me, that made it a little difficult. Like I wanted something that was different, but still like good, you know, not to say that I didn't like it, but it just can't compare.
Definitely. I I would argue that I can see the difference between B and Olive a lot better than I can see the difference between Levi and Adam, even though I'll get into some of the differences between Levi and Adam later as we talk about the book. But I do agree that there were some points where I was like, I don't know, I feel like that's very like Adam Carlson-esque of you to do, you know?
Yeah, 100%. So, yeah. All right, should we dive in now?
Yes, I'm ready.
All right, chapter 1. In chapter 1, we get introduced to our main character, B. B recently got accepted into a program with NASA that she has dreamed about and will put her career back on track. However, the condition is that she has to work with her grad school nemesis, Levi. We also get introduced to B's sister, Reich, who is blunt, honest, and notices appearances more than her sister. We also get background on how B grew up. So, here's the first thing I'll say about chapter 1. Mm-hmm. The whole tie-in to Marie Curie, like, I think it made more sense once we find out later about her Twitter account and stuff. Yes. But at first, I was like, this just feels kind of forced, like the connection to the biggest, like one of the biggest female scientists of all time and whatever. And I think as the book went on, it made more sense. Yeah. But as like the start to the book, it didn't like hook me right away. I wasn't hooked until chapter 2.
You know what's funny is that her chapter 1 almost read like an Emily Henry chapter 1, because Emily Henry loves to do these things where it's like she begins her chapters with like these very like abstract ideas that she can then tie to the main character in their real life and whatever. So as I was reading chapter 1, I was like, am I reading an Emily Henry book? Because I know nothing about this main character right now. I know so much about Marie, like great, right? But I was like, what? Like, how are we going to bring this back in? But I also will say that the whole like, oh, her lab coat was her wedding dress. I was like, I know that's going to come back. Yeah, like, I was like, I'm not dumb. I'm not dumb, Ali Hazelwood.
You're like, I see what you're putting down. Another thing I will say, I do love the side characters in this book a lot. Like, I love her sister because I feel like she popped in at good moments. Sometimes I felt like we got a lot of background about her sister where I'm like, I feel like we could get another book with her sister now because we got so much, like it almost seems like it could be like a standalone series in that way. But I did like her sister a lot, and how right away she's like, oh, Levi, like the hot one? Like, and she's like, no, he's not. And I was like, like, I love that stuff, you know?
Yeah, I agree too, because I feel like the side characters in this book made a lot more sense rather than they were just kind of there in the love hypothesis. Even though you could argue that Anne was the whole reason why Olive did what she did. But I feel like all of the side characters in this book had bigger roles that came to play.
The whole first chapter, I literally have 2 different notes about this. So here's what one of my notes reads. Fugly, laughy face, page 8. Okay, so he implicitly offended her, ... I guarantee she completely misread that and will find out why soon, LOL. Then under that, page 9, in all caps, girl, he said nothing, probs because he didn't know what to say and was in love with you. So, anyways. And then this was a quote at the bottom of page 9.
Okay.
I never resented him for refusing to be strong-armed into pretending that he found me attractive or, well, not repulsive. He always seemed like a man's man after all, different from the boys that surrounded me. Serious, disciplined, a little Brody, intense and gifted, alpha, whatever that even means. A girl with a septum piercing and a blue ombre wouldn't conform to his ideals of what pretty ladies should look like, and that's fine. And I literally said, she thinks that's not his idea of a pretty girl. And also, she had a fiance. So, like, what are you, girlfriend?
That's right.
Why do you care if he finds you attractive?
Okay, but I think that was a plot device in order for Ali Hazelwood to set up their dynamic, because I think that is what is so important in this book, which we'll get into their Twitter personas later. But I think it's so important because we think one thing where B is like, oh, he doesn't like the way that she looks. And we're getting that from her perspective. So we're like, okay, that makes sense. But then as we slowly keep reading, we're like, wait a second. Levi never fucking thought that. Like what? Yeah. Like what's happening? Like there's almost two different parallel paths happening, and it's so much fun because we get to see both sides.
Yeah. 100%. Oh, that's so true. That's so true. Oh my god. Okay. It's so funny because I don't like when I know. Like, okay. To me, right away, it was so obvious that B was just missing every single signal or every important thing that he could possibly say that might indicate that he thinks otherwise. Like on page 12, when she hears him in the room talking to, I think, Boris, and I literally wrote in my note, okay, I'm annoyed because if she had just listened, I bet he said they can't work together because he likes her or there is some other reason. And of course there was, but I was just like, girly, why don't you listen? Like, and again, it's a plot device, but I was irritated. I was like, girly, just listen. Why do you stop them to stop listening? Sheesh.
I mean, I guess the thing is though, like, would you stay and listen? I think me personally, I would barge in and be like, what the hell are you talking about? But that's me.
That's the difference between us. You'd be like, what the fuck did you say, Richard? Or wait, no, what is it? What the fuck did you say, Kyle? No, what the fuck did you say? No, and I would just be sitting there listening until I'm literally with like ear against the door until I'm literally bawling, and then I'd be like, okay, I think I need to be done now.
I would have barged in. So I mean, in her defense, I understand why B would have walked away, but. I think it's just a plot device of like, we needed B to hate Levi, and Ali Hazelwood also needed us to hate Levi walking into this book. So I feel like the way that she set it up made sense. Yes, the way that she wanted it to. Yeah.
Yes, you're right. This is another thing. One of those things that Ali Hazelwood said in the first chapter that I knew was going to come back was when she packed her dress that he hates, supposedly. And I was like, I know that's going to come back into play later, and I'm going to love every second of it, because there is nothing I love more than when a girl is like wearing something and the guy just like can't control himself because he loves her in that so much. Like in the Love Hypothesis, when Olive was wearing his t-shirt and Adam couldn't even speak. Like that is the stuff I love. Like I live for that.
Yeah, I agree. I was like, I wonder when that dress is gonna come back.
Yeah, right. Literally, chapter 1, we get background on her sister and the fact that her parents died, and so I think that was good to know right away too, because it kind of helped us understand her a little bit more.
And that's another thing too of why I think Love on the Brain, or at least Ali Hazelwood stepped up her game with Love on the Brain, is because she gave B an actual like wound. Like she gave B an actual wound that very much materialized into her real life, seeping into literally every single aspect of her life, which we'll get to in the third act, because that comes really big into play. But again, I feel like the way that she built B was so much more tangible and believable than Olive. But again, I still love Olive.
But that's all I have for chapter 1. Do you have anything else?
I do not.
Chapter 2. And what New York accent just came at chapter 2. In chapter 2. God. Oh, Lordy. Okay. In chapter 2, B makes her way to Houston to begin her project. During her travels, we find out that she is the mastermind behind the famous Twitter account for women in STEM. Not only that, but she formed a friendship with a man behind another popular STEM Twitter account. Right away, I knew it was him. Sorry. Right away, I was like, oh my gosh. Yeah. And I loved it. Okay, sorry, continue. Sorry. Okay. The catch is they don't know who each other are in real life. Then B arrives in Houston and decides to tour her workplace for the first time. We get introduced to the astronaut guy, and B is saved by her least favorite engineer, Levi. Right away, I hated Tim so much. Like her ex-fiance. I was like, oh, there is nothing more I love in these books than hating a man who does my girl wrong.
Yeah.
Like, no, I hate you, Tim. I hate you. Like, when it's described that he's like laughing with the rest of them at her, and like, I was like, screw you, dude.
Yeah.
Ew.
And like, just the way too, as we read the book, we get little glimpses of like what Tim would tell B to do.
Yes.
And I'm like, you lived this way, B? Like, it was horrible.
Literally horrible. I will say, I love the idea of the Twitter account being such a big part of the storyline.
Yeah.
I thought it was so clever, so modern, I just thought that was such a good surprise. Like, I wasn't expecting something like that, and I loved it.
I agree. And I agree with what you said too, is that like I immediately knew that it was him, but I ate it up. But what makes it even better is that like even after all these years, after grad school, they were like still talking to each other, even though they didn't know it. That's what gets me. That is what gets me. Because it's like Levi thinks that she's so far off, but it's like, no, honey, she is right there. And you've been talking to her the entire time. Oh my god, it's just so cute.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe I have a note about this. I literally just say, okay, I love Guy Kowalski, which is so funny because obviously later on, but I really liked him at first. I thought he was so nice. We'll talk more about it later, but I liked him at first.
Nope, I did too. And I pulled out some very specific parts of the book of why I liked him. And I think, again, goes to the point of Ali Hazelwood did such a good job of setting down those stones for us to be like, oh, we do like him.
My note here just says, in all caps, ha 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 ha, no way she just reconnected with Levi after he saved her from getting crushed. I quit. That was such a dramatic, like, rom-com moment where she's about to get crushed by this thing and he like pushes her out of the way. Again, so cheesy, but I ate it up.
Me too.
I loved it. And then the way it's described, that they're like bodies pressed together, and like the way he cradled her face,
and like the way his like thigh is like in between.
Yes.
It's, again, so over the top, but I ate it up. It was so dramatic.
And that was the moment when I knew, well, I didn't know, but I anticipated that this book was going to be a little steamier than The Love Hypothesis, in the sense that like I thought there was going to be more.
Yes.
Which there was. But but yeah, that's all I have for chapter 2, because I feel like it, there wasn't a ton to say right away.
Cool. Okay, well, we'll get into chapter 3 then. So here's a synopsis for chapter 3. It's B's first day working at NASA on blank. Guy gives her and Rocio a tour of the building and their offices, and B realizes that her equipment isn't here, and their offices are a lot farther away from Levi's and the rest of the team. B gets her first look at the helmet prototype and states that the pattern of holes in the inner shell is incorrectly placed. Then they go to a conference room for introductions, and the chapter ends with B confronting Levi about the previous day, her missing equipment, and Levi's particular rule about dress code. So this is when I was like, okay, let's kind of get into the plot, like the meat of what we were promised of them working together. And I'll get to it, especially about the end of this chapter. But to start off, I wish, oh God, a part of me wishes that we got the scene of like what happened after she fainted, because in chapter 3 we only got a summary, which is fine, but still I would have loved to like actually see like Levi bridal carrying her to the lobby. Like, Miss Ali Hazelwood, why would you give me that in a summary?
I know. I want the details. Where was his hand placed?
Yes.
Did he look worried?
Yes.
Let me know.
Yes. And I was just like, okay, whatever. I understand that you have to like skip to her first day, right? But I still wanted it.
But here's the thing. If she was fainted, the book is from B's perspective. So unless she switched between the POVs, there was no way to do that other than through a summary.
Yeah, I guess. But it could have also been done where she like wakes up on the couch in the lobby.
Sure.
And she like hears he hears him like calling someone out of being like, what is happening? Like, why do you have these things out for it to fall? Like, because he was cussing someone out. In this chapter, we get crazy background about Levi and B in grad school. And I'm sorry, the lengths that he would go to avoid her was absolutely ridiculous.
Astronomical. Yes. I was like, dude, relax.
I know. So
like,
at the bottom of page 36, this is what it says. Oh my gosh. Okay, let me see. Also, I love that she calls him Dr. Wardass. Sorry, it's so random.
No, I think it's so funny too.
Okay. Bottom of page 36. This is Dr. Wardass, after all. The man who once stood for a 2-hour meeting rather than take the empty seat next to her. The man who exited a game of poker he was winning because someone dealt me in. The man who hugged everyone in the lab on his last day at Pitt and promptly switched to handshakes when it was my turn. I was like, dude, this is so excessive.
So excessive. Especially the poker thing. I was like, dude, yes. It's not like you're alone. Like, what are you...
And also the whole lecture thing of like, he's going to stand up for 2 hours rather than take the last seat next to her. I was like, you are a full grown ass man. Get over it. Like, I was just, at that point, I was like, this is excessive.
No, literally. This is a lot. Thank you.
Which then goes into my next point of when B tours a place and all of her equipment hasn't showed up. I was so convinced it was Levi who was all behind it, because again, Ali Hazelwood did a fantastic way of setting it up where it was like between B and Levi's dynamic, because it was him that had to authorize everything. It was him who had to do the signatures and all of that stuff. So I was fully on board to be like, Levi, what are you doing? Like, this is so annoying. I will admit, I was on the Levi hate train, like, from the start. Like, you might have seen through it, but I was ready to hate his guts.
No, especially at the end of this chapter, I switched real quick.
Yeah. Okay, we'll get there. there. Mm-hmm. Okay, let's talk about B wearing her maternal grandmother's ring on her left hand. The second I saw that, I was like, this is going to come into play. I just know it. I was like, you're not going to call it out that she's fidgeting with it or whatever without it carrying over to the future chapters. Along with like her grandmother's ring, I feel like the clues in Love on the Brain were a lot better than the clues in the Love Hypothesis. Like, I feel like, yes, in the Love Hypothesis, she was able to bring things back, which was great. But in Love on the Brain, though, I feel like all the clues came back, but they were also important to the plot. I think that's what was even better compared to the Love Hypothesis, because the ring does come back, and there's a lot of other things that do, but it plays directly into the plot, which I love, and I like ate that up. Also, I love that when B sees the helmet prototype for the first time, she immediately sees something wrong, which tells me she's like such a badass who's smart and knows what she's talking about. Yes. I was like, yes, B, like, you call out all these things. And it also proves to us that like, this is why she's here. This is why NIH sent her in the first place. Mm-hmm. My favorite part, personally, is when she's dissing Levi to Lamar and Guy, and Levi is standing right behind her.
I loved that so much.
I was like, that's such a classic Ali Hazelwood thing, but I was cackling when I read that part.
Same. Because I felt the awkwardness. Yes. I was like, oh my gosh.
The fact that Levi was eating her donut pissed me off.
Same. I was like, I literally, in my head, I was like, you did that on purpose, asshole.
Yes, exactly. Again, another reason why I hated him, because I was like, so you're going to sit there and you're just going to like eat it smugly in front of her. And the fact that they were sitting on opposite sides of the conference table, so they were facing each other, made it even more awkward.
Yeah.
Also, when they were doing icebreakers, I knew they would have something in common.
I knew it too.
I was so giggly when I was reading this part, because he said Empire Strikes Back is his favorite movie, and then we get internal dialogue from B of like, oh shit, Empire Strikes Back is my favorite movie, and I was like, Oh no. Oh no.
I loved that so much.
Yeah. And then just another notable thing in this chapter is that we get to meet Levi's research assistant, Kaylee Jackson. As soon as I saw her and Rocio together, I immediately knew something was up, which was cute.
No, same. No, immediately I was like, there are some vibes, especially as the chapters go on. I think I have a note about it at some point because Rocio was so averse to like being around her. I was like, some stuff is happening.
I know.
Like this,
Also, sidebar, I thought of Rocio as Audrey Plaza from Parks and Rec.
Wow. Now that you say that, yes.
Right?
100%.
She like was so weird and was always saying these like weird, creepy facts, but like B like loved her so much. I was like, oh no, you're definitely Audrey Plaza from Parks and Rec, which I loved because I thought it was just very, very funny the way that she was B's research assistant when B is like very like bubbly and nice and all that stuff. Okay, so getting to the end of this chapter where they have a conversation outside in the hallway, we immediately get that he's tense when B catches him outside the conference room. And I just knew. I was like, there's something more than this. Like, I feel like, yes, you might hate her, but there is something else. like, why are you so like jumpy around her? And I'm like, there is definitely something else. Okay, another sidebar. I am so sorry. I'm so sorry. I just have to say my piece about it, okay?
Okay.
Let's talk about Levi's physical description, okay? Because while I love myself a broad, big man like Henry Cavill, this was overkill to describe just how big he was. Like, I was so over it by this book. Like, I was like, really? You need to describe how big he is for the fucking 5th time? Please, go again. Go again. Like, I was just... I could not. I really could not, Theoni.
Like, we get it.
Yes!
We get it.
I was like, yes, he dwarfs the chair. He's huge. Whatever. Who gives a shit?
And then so many times we get the difference between their height and like,
okay.
Yes, she's small, he's big.
Or like the way that her, like his hand like wraps around the back of her hand. Yes. I
love me some big hands, but girlfriend.
Exactly. It was overkill.
Enough.
Like, I love it, but you don't have to do it every single fucking chapter.
Yeah. Agreed.
And then we also get that B keeps thinking about his thighs pushing between her legs. And I was like, I don't blame her because I'd do the same. The same.
That was so relatable. Where it's like you don't want to keep thinking about something, but you're like, that was hot.
Like it just keeps coming back. You're like, shit.
Right? Yes, exactly.
They talk about the cat that B saw when the whole thing was falling on her. The only reason why I'm mentioning it is because it's important later on in the book. They talk about how and why B ended up at NIH, but they keep it very vague, which again we'll find out later. And then Levi finally asks about Tim. And I think it goes to this whole point, too, back of, like, we know things that B doesn't know that Levi doesn't know. And I love it because in this instance, B assumes that Levi knows what Tim did to her. But as we later find out, he doesn't, which makes the tension even more juicy. Like,
right?
It's perfect. It's so good. And then this last part, which it like tipped me. It tipped me over the edge when he commented about what she was wearing and how she looks and her physical appearance when he himself is in jeans and a fucking t-shirt. I was like, the audacity to comment on it. I was ready to kill him. I was so pissed.
I know.
I was so pissed. Don't get me wrong. I love Dr. Levi Ward, but I was ready to kill him. I was like, nuh-uh. I was not expecting you to say, like, I read that and I was plotting his murder. Like, which is funny because B does the same thing too.
Literally. But no, that part made me so mad. And then she's talking about how everyone else dresses however they want. Yes. And I was like, screw you, dude. Yeah. Like, I was like, thinking in my head, I'm like, good luck, Ali Hazelwood, walking yourself out of this one, because that is just so beyond.
Yes.
That is just so beyond.
And the fact that, like, his own research assistant, Kaylee, was in a dress too. And she was wearing all of that stuff. So I was like, oh my God. Like, I thought I hated you, and I hated you even more now. Like, that is just so rude.
Literally so rude.
Anyways, that is how chapter 3 ends. Do you have any thoughts on anything else?
I do not think so.
Okay. Then we can get into chapter 4. Here is the synopsis. Chapter 4 starts with Bea and Rocio getting locked out of their office at NASA. Guy has some questions for Bea about Blink and nonchalantly throws out a mention of a date. We learn that Levi has a child and that he's the one who needs to authorize the funds for Bea's equipment. Bea fantasizes about the many ways she can torture/kill Levi. On the 5th day of her job, she walks in on Levi and Rocio talking. Bea admits to Rocio that Levi doesn't like her, which prompts Bea to truly think about what he had done to make her think that. The chapter ends with a conversation with Reich, and Bea decides to be firm with her demands next week. So this entire time, I just felt really bad for Bea, because I think she was so earnest in her motives, and she wanted this so badly, and like it was such a big break for her that when she finally gets to NASA and she finally has her first week, it like goes to shit. And I was like, that sucks. That sucks so much.
No, it does. And she literally, it was one thing after another. And if that's not something we can all relate to, it's just like she's trying so hard to be positive and find ways around things, but it's like one thing after another.
I know.
It was heartbreaking.
It's like she was set up to fail, and she just like could not accept it. She just kept pushing through, which is like good for her, but like, holy crap, that is so hard. Of course, Guy throws out a mention of a date. I was actually rereading this scene for my notes, and I forgot that he had asked for a date. And I was
You did?
Yeah, and I was like, oh, how interesting, because then he does it later again as we keep reading. But like, this was the first time that he asked, or at least threw out the idea of a date. And I was like, oh, that is very interesting. Like, I must have like forgotten it, but
I thought she might go with him, actually.
Me too.
I thought she was going to for a second.
Me too, because you know what? Again, going back to the way that Ali Hazelwood set up Guy's character, like I thought that he was like this cute random guy at the lab, and like he was just like such a good safe option, you know. But I think it's because we were so focused on Levi that he never even got past my like field of vision. Sure. Okay, I have an audio message for page 54.
I don't understand this thing where in order to be a bro, he has to own a truck, and he has to like have muscles, and he has to like do this and that. Like, I'm just like, I don't know. A part of me like loves it. I'm like, yes. But then another part of me, like my feminist side, I'm like, you know, it's okay to be a bro and like other things that are not typical bro-y, okay? I don't know.
That's literally it. I think that part goes hand in hand with the whole physical description, like of him, of like he's big and broad and blah blah blah, and I'm like, oh, and he's also a bro and owns a truck. I'm just like, can we just stop? Like, I'm so over it. I was so over it. So
okay, but I have to say, I did love that he was a bro, because you know me
and your fuck boys.
I know. It's
and
so dumb.
I feel like he's so much more bro-y than Adam Carlson.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
So that part I liked. That's one thing that I feel like differentiated them.
Okay.
And not gonna lie, I like it. It's just, yeah. It always surprises me, because I never speak to those people really in real life, nor do I feel like I get along with that like stereotype that well, because I'm just like the farthest thing from like a cool like, yeah, you know. So anyway,
yes,
you know
I know.
Yes,
I do know. I'm very, very familiar.
Anyways, next one.
Next audio message is page 55.
Okie dokie. Levi has a kid. I did not see this coming. This is a plot twist I did not see coming. I don't know. I feel like because all I have is The Love Hypothesis and her 3 short novellas, where I'm constantly comparing, which I'm trying not to, right? But it's hard when that's all that I have from Ali Hazelwood. So I didn't expect this coming, but I don't hate it. I know a kid trope is sometimes kind of a hit or miss for people, but I personally like it.
And I wanted to get your thoughts on that too, because in the book talk or just the book community in general, a lot of the pregnancy tropes and the kid tropes are deal breakers for people. So I wanted to hear your thoughts when you realized that Levi had a kid.
I liked it. I liked it a lot, actually. And just in general with pregnancy tropes or kid tropes, I feel like it has to be done in a way where it's not just a brief plot device. If you're gonna have a kid in the story or have the pregnancy in the story, have it serve some purpose for the plot. Don't just be oh, he has a kid, cute, and then never have that be part of the story.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So I think that the fact that he had one was good, and then the way that played out was also really well done.
Yes.
So that part, I really liked it in this book.
Yeah. It was so confusing to me because you already know this about me, but it's anytime a fictional man interacts with a kid, I'm I'm on it. I'm on the train.
No, instant panty dropper for sure.
Exactly. Really.
If you know how to, in real life too, to be honest, you interact with a kid, literally you could look at a child with love in your eyes, and I'm I love you.
I'm ready to marry you right now.
Literally. Yeah. Have my babies.
Exactly. And so that's why I was so confused, because I was shit, Levi has a kid, so he has that soft side of him, but right now I am so on this hate train that I can't even acknowledge this other side of him. So I was just so conflicted. The line in my notes that I have is that about his physical appearance on page 56 again. Oh my god. Okay, sorry, I'm throwing up in my mouth already.
Oh god.
Sorry. I smile up at him, leaning my hip against the sink. God, he's so tall and broad. He's 1,000-year-old. Someone with a body like this has no business owning a nerdy mod. I'm sorry. I can't.
There's no Wait, does it keep going?
No. That's
I
literally
don't. Why? What did that do for anything? We get it.
Yeah.
He's tall.
You're telling me he's 1,000-year oak? What does that mean? What does that mean? What does it mean?
You are literally in distress.
Oh my god. Again, I just it was so overboard. I'm just tell me he's tall and broad. Don't fucking tell me he's 1,000-year oak. I'm sorry. Okay.
He's a tree.
He's a fucking tree. He's a tree. I'm sorry. God, I can't take it seriously. Okay. Finally, on the 5th day, we see Levi chatting with Rocio in their office. And that's when B walks in and he's smiling. And this is, again, another clue where I was something's up. There is so much more to this story that we're not getting. And, someone is not being, truthful, or something's going on here. Because, I couldn't even, at this point, I couldn't even fathom him being, nice to anyone. Even though we've had, the rumors from, Guy of, oh, yeah, Levi's he's a really great, he's a bro and blah, 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 all this other stuff. So I was really, you're smiling. Okay, whatever. I also love that we finally get to see B think about when, why, and how Levi hated her in grad school. And it really poses the question of okay, well, B, were you reading into something differently than everyone else was? So on page 60, this is what she says. I actually have no idea. I try to think back to my first meeting with him, but I can't remember it. It must have been on my first day of grad school when Tim and I joined Sam's lab, but I have no memories. He was vaguely hostile to me well before the incident in Sam's office when he declined to collaborate, but I can't place the start of it. Interesting. I guess Tim or Annie might know. So it's interesting where it's like she's even doubting herself now. So now at this point, I'm like, okay, well, B, you're unreliable. Like I can't take your word for it because at this point he's smiling, he's being nice, he has a kid. I'm like, what? I was just very confused.
Yeah. The stark difference between the two different like versions of Levi was so palpable.
Yes, but I loved it though too. Because I feel like we needed Levi to be the bad guy at the beginning of the book in order to push B the way that she was pushed. The chapter ends with B contemplating if Levi is truly sabotaging the entire project because he doesn't want to work with B. But again, his actions are very convincing. So at this point, I was still on the train of like, oh yes, Levi is sabotaging her.
Yep, no, I agree. I kind of thought he was, to be honest.
Yeah. But that is the end for chapter 4.
Chapter 5. This one I don't have a lot for.
Okay.
Chapter 5 begins with B getting news from Trevor. Fucking Trevor. Sorry. Whenever I read that name, that's what I thought of. from the after movies, you know. Oh my god, the way he sounds. Fucking Trevor. Trevor. Okay. B getting news from Trevor that she must start sending weekly reports of her progress, otherwise she'll get cut from the project, which sends B off to confront Levi since he is seemingly behind all the bumps in the road she has faced so far. Levi wants B to believe that she should just believe him, but she is adamant that she shouldn't, and when she goes to talk to his supervisor, then he tries to convince her not to. Luckily, B runs into Rocio on the way out of his office, which stops her from going to his supervisor for now. The first thing I said, the way my jaw dropped when 1, Trevor threatened her, and then 2, when we find out Levi canceled the order. Wow, I hate him too at this point. Like all these things, like at first I was like, oh, B's like reading into it wrong. Like he clearly likes her and is just whatever. But then these things were happening and I was like, but Levi did cancel the orders and Levi did say these things.
Yes.
And even if he was doing them for other reasons, like that's still shitty.
I know, and that's why I was confused at the beginning, because it's like we're getting all of these pieces secondhand about Levi and how great he is, yet B is getting such a different side from him where I'm like, what are you trying to do? Like, what is your plan? And I think that's what made me so pissed off at him for.
Okay, and then I have a quote on page 74. Hold on. Something odd happened. Okay, wait, I'm just going to read the paragraph before because to give it some context.
Okay.
Trust you? I laugh in his face. Why the hell should I trust you? I stab my finger at him again, and this time he closes his palm around it to stop me. Something odd happens. His grip slides down to my palm, and for a moment he's almost holding my hand in his. It makes my skin tingle and my breath catch. His too. It must be his cue to realize that he's touching me. Me, the most abhorrent creature of the 7 seas. He lets go immediately, as if burned. I love a good touching hand moment. I really do. They do something to me. Like when I get a paragraph about they touched hands and I felt the electricity in my, like, I don't care what it is, but I eat it up. Like those little moments that we get in the midst of hating him so much made me feel the push and pull so much.
Like the tension was just so palpable where I was like, oh my God, you guys are so angry at each other, but there's something else going on. I was also going to say that that's the female gaze. Like it's Emily Henry does it, Ali Hazelwood does it. It's just like, that is what I want. That is only what I want.
Literally. Okay, B and Rocio talking about the GRE just gave me Vietnam flashbacks. Like I related so much to Rocio in that moment.
Oh yeah.
Like I remember the GRE is such BS. So the fact that that became such a big thing in this book felt so realistic to me. And thank goodness my program did not require the GRE.
Damn.
Because I did not do that well. The only section I did well on with the GRE was the writing. The other ones I did not do well on. And it is such, but it obviously has no indication of how I would be as a therapist.
Yeah.
So like hearing that just felt so fresh and real to me.
And validating probably as well.
Yes.
Like
it was. And yes, I'll talk about them more later too. But yeah, so that's what I have for chapter 5. Do you have anything else?
I was just going to say that I really did like that Trevor was added in chapter 5 because, again, I feel like the stakes were a lot better. And with the way that Trevor was like, well, you're not the only one who applied for the position. And I was like, oh shit. Like Trevor is not afraid to pull B out of this project that she really, really needs for her career. So again, I felt like the stakes were so much better than the love hypothesis because they were tangible and there were actual consequences if she didn't do what she was supposed to do.
Yep, 100%. Yeah. Chapter 6. Chapter 6 begins with B overhearing a conversation between Levi and Boris, where we find out Levi has been on B's side and has not been sabotaging the project. Instead, we find out NASA and NIH don't want to share patents, which threatens the entire project. Levi then finds out B overhears this conversation and takes her away to talk about what is going on. However, B is not having it. She finally shares how upset she is about him hating her for no reason, and although Levi denies this is true, B doesn't believe him. The chapter ends with B messaging Schmuck. So my first note was like, ha ha ha, I knew Levi was on her side this whole time.
Yes.
But then this, again, I'm going to take a word out of your mouth. The stakes were so high because the fact that the project might be canceled, I think just really also forced Levi to stop hiding things from her and to stop keeping her on the outside of so many things, or at least force him to work together with her a little more.
I agree. At this point, I was like, oh, crap. Well, Blink is going to be canceled, but now Levi wants to fight for it. I guess in my mind, I was like, okay, that makes sense. The stakes are freaking crazy right now. But I was still on the side of okay, Levi, why do you want this so bad? Right. That's the only part that I still didn't get, but everything else I was like, okay, you're slowly becoming redeemable for me,
Yep, exactly. The way that this was described in the scene when Levi catches B eavesdropping, how she finally decides to listen by the door and then he opens it and she literally falls at him, that part was so funny to me. I just love the way it was written. Page 82, when he leads her away with a grip on her elbow, I'm gonna melt, LMAO. Again, it's the little moments of touch
it really, really does. It's
it does its job. My note says, okay, this whole conversation under the bleachers, ... I better get a dang good explanation soon about what the F is happening with his child, which I'm not convinced is his child, and why he always ignored B. So right then, I was like, something is happening here. Yeah. Okay, so then, of course, he's trying to explain, I don't hate you. He's trying to explain the situation. And he is like, wait, B, wait. And she doesn't wait. Which, good for her, honestly, because just because now he's ready to explain himself doesn't mean that she has to be ready to listen.
Exactly.
Okay, because she gets to make her own decisions about when she listens and when she doesn't. So I was like, go off, girl.
Yep, I agree.
On page 91, in the conversation between her and Schmack, literally there's a quote that said, she's still the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. At that point, I was like, how do you not know it's each other? I was like, ugh. So the whole time their conversations were so painful because I was like, it is so obvious to me, but she is so blinded to the fact that she thinks Levi hates her that she cannot pick up on these clues.
I agree, but I disagree at the same time too. Yes and no, because yes, I was like, you got it's you guys. Why can't you see this? This is so dumb. But I think at the other end, it's okay, well, Levi's under the assumption that she's married. So, of course, B thinks it's not her because she's not married. So I'm like, okay, there's one, right? Two is that if this was in real life, I don't think I would jump to a conclusion that fast because it's just too good to be true. I'm like, are you kidding me? The coincidence of us being these two personas online, but then also being coworkers in real life? I'm like, no, So a part of me is like, okay, in the real world, it makes sense, but I think because we're reading it on paper, we're like, it's too obvious.
But yeah, that's what I have for chapter 6.
All right, moving on to chapter 7. Here is my synopsis. Chapter 7 opens with B sleepily answering her phone. Who's on the other line, you ask? The one and only Dr. Wardass. Levi asks for her to meet at the Space Center before 7 a.m. They confront Boris together, and Levi shows him that a company named MagTech is also competing for a helmet tech similar to what they're already developing, and many businesses are already interested in them instead of NASA and NIH. Boris agrees to chat with the director to unshelf Blink and get the project started again. Levi and B chat in the hallway, and B comes to terms that it's okay if Levi hates her. The chapter ends with B sharing the good news that Blink is back on with Rocio. I guess a part of me, like, this chapter gave me some clarity and it gave me some more trust with Levi, but I still needed just a little bit more. Also, I really hope that, like, Ali Hazelwood has, like, bonus chapters, because I want this chapter from Levi's perspective. Like, yes! I want to know what he's thinking when he sees B show up in leggings and a flannel without a bra. And yes! I'm 100% convinced that he knew she didn't have a bra either.
He noticed. Yes! He noticed. And he could not stop thinking about it. 100%.
I know. And I need this chapter in his perspective, like, so badly. At the bottom of page 95, when he just said, like, there's no time, just follow my lead. And B said, I thought we were co-leads. And then he almost smiles and says, follow my co-lead then. I died. I was like, excuse me, now you're being nice?
I know.
Like, the cutest
follow
thing.
My co-lead, like,
because they're co-lead, like, oh my gosh, just the cutest.
I love them together.
Really, yeah. I loved when B basically schooled them on neurology and was like, I can do it because I'm already here and I already know what needs to be fixed, but MagTech might not know. And at that moment, she just proved herself so invaluable. And I love that because it was basically a point of no return for the book. Like, she was now committed to this project with her nemesis from grad school. Question for this chapter. Yeah. Did we ever find out how Levi got the pictures of MagTech's prototype? Like, later in the chapter, he says, like, oh, a friend or whatever. But was it ever, like, revealed later on in the book of, like, how his connections got him those prototypes?
I don't think so, actually. Okay. Now that you bring that up, I don't think so.
I know. I was trying to think.
Which is interesting.
Yeah. So I was like, okay. I mean, I guess that's the only plot hole I was concerned about, you know?
Well, there's another thing or another storyline I feel like didn't get finished.
Okay.
But we'll talk about that later.
Sounds good. Coming off of that, I do love the idea of Levi committing in some light espionage. Like, I know, like right? That's so Levi. Like, Adam Carlson would never.
No.
I feel like he's so morally right. Like, he's like, I can't. Levi's like, fuck it.
No, literally, though. Again, another difference between them that I like, you know?
I agree. I also love that it was B who called the shot that they could do it in 3 months. Because it gives her so much sway over the project. And I love that she has that much control and investment in it and that people are actually listening to her about it. And I also love that it was Levi who turned to her and was like, well, can you do it? And she was like, yeah, I can do it. And I was like, yes, of course I
know. I love that too.
Yeah.
Because I liked how we finally saw her coming into her own a little bit in the sense that, like, gaining confidence in a situation that doesn't want her to be confident.
Exactly. And the thing is too is that, like, this was the first time that someone even freaking acknowledged her, and it was Levi, her, like, quote unquote nemesis or whatever. So I'm really happy that she like took the chance to really step up and be like, yep, I'm here for a reason and I'm gonna do my job. So after they leave Boris's office, they have this weird ass conversation where I was begging B to just let Levi talk. It was so painful for me that she kept interrupting him, and I was just like, if you could just be quiet, he could finish his thoughts and we would be done here, okay? On page 100, when she's basically talking over him and going on this long spiel, she says, quote, even though, let's be real, I'm a delight. What's wrong with you? And I cackled because Levi didn't know she was joking and his, like, face falls. I'm like, oh, Levi. Just poor innocent Levi thinking that he's getting, like, freaking, like, chewed out. I also really love this quote on page 101 when B is still talking. Okay, this is a quote from her. She says, "The point is, sometimes dislike is a gut reaction, like falling in love at first sight, just the opposite." I was like, that's so beautiful, but also in a way, she doesn't know that that's how Levi feels about her. And I was just like, it like pained me to be like, she doesn't know that he feels the opposite for her. And I'm like, just let him talk.
Literally.
It's also funny that when Kaylee finds them, she has to say Levi's name 3 times to finally get his attention. Girl, if that's not enough evidence for you that he's smitten with you, then I don't know what it is. Like, what else do you need? What else do you need?
He is giving you undivided attention.
Yes.
Like, he is not noticing anyone else but you, girl.
Exactly. So the chapter ends with Levi texting B that her equipment is arriving tomorrow and that they can meet together pretty soon to go over the project. B is ecstatic, as she should be, and she tells Rocio. At the mention of Kaylee, Rocio literally leaves the office. And I was cackling at the way she just picked up all her shit and just left. Like, no words at all. It was so funny.
So funny.
But that's the end of chapter 7. Do you have anything for that chapter?
I do not.
Great, then let's dive into 8 then.
Great.
Here is a synopsis. B has to come to terms that she'll be working with engineers, and while not all of them are bad, the ones she's working with are. Levi teases her for the first time. We get another mention at the Sullivan prototype that the team is keen on following, though Levi urges them to change it based on B's recommendation. Finally, they get their equipment, and Guy helps set up everything for them. B chats with Schmack via Twitter about the camel dick she's dealing with and the girl that Schmack is in love with. The chapter ends with B going for a run and getting locked in the cemetery. Alrighty. Okay, so this is when I was like, okay, I'm like ready. I'm ready to just dive into the meat of their dynamic, their relationship, like everything at this point. I also just want to call out the fact that that people were so adamant on invalidating B and what needs to be done to the helmet.
Seriously?
It was so excessive and annoying. I was like, Mark, shut up. It is not impossible, but that's all you can say, I guess. Like,
literally. Screw you, Mark.
Yeah. And then we also get another glimpse of this like Sullivan prototype, which is the second time that we've heard of the name. I just wanted to mention that because we'll be revisiting that later. On page 106, again, another thing about the female gaze. Page 106 says, quote, Levi happens to enter the room right at that moment, nodding his good mornings in our general direction and rolling up the sleeves of his Henley. His forearms are strong and insanely attractive. Theoni, I threw up in my mouth and I had to put the book down because I was like, why is that so hot?
Literally.
Why? Tell me why.
It's like, why is a forearm turning me on?
Why?
But guess what? It is.
I was like, I needed to take really deep breaths because I could not handle it. I was like,
no, literally.
I was like, oh my God, just the idea of him like rolling it, like, oh my God, I can't even like imagine it because I'm going to lose my mind.
But that description also fit Levi as a character so well because he's like a bro, you know?
Yes,
so then him rolling up his sleeves.
He is a bro. Oh my God. Okay. Whew. Okay. Whew. On page 107, he teases B for the first time, referencing that diss that she did when she first saw the helmet prototype. And when it happened, I almost couldn't believe it. I was like, oh my God, he did not just tease her. Like, Levi Ward is capable of humor and possible. Like, I was like, this is crazy. And it's funny, too, because B didn't even realize it either. She's like, oh, he's teasing me. I was like, wow, okay.
It was almost like him testing the waters and like not being able to help himself, you know?
Yes, because he's in love with her, okay?
I
know. I'm sorry, I need to take deep breaths. Okay. Talking about the water fountain, let's read a quote on page 110.
Oh, God.
It says, quote, he's so tall. He needs to hunch over the fountain. His biceps shift under the cotton of his shirt. Was he this big in grad school, or did I get even shorter? No one thinks like this, Theoni, okay? No one, okay? And I was, again, at this point, I was just already done with it. I was like, whatever. Like, thank you, but no thank you, okay? Like, I've had enough.
Literally, enough with the tall.
Too many slices, and I'm fine, okay? Mm-hmm. But I will admit that his biceps shifting.
Oh, that part?
Oh, so good.
Amazing.
So good. I love myself a good muscle description.
Selena's like, I love myself a good bicep.
You know I'm a sucker for those broad shoulders. I already said that's the Henry Cavill kind of look.
Don't mention.
Okay.
I literally rewatched the video of Henry Cavill earlier reading thirst tweets.
Oh, God. That one's so good.
He's literally so attractive.
He is. It should be illegal.
It makes me giggly.
Yeah.
No, it literally should be illegal.
The only thing I want to call out about Guy setting up B's and Rocio's equipment is that Ali Hazelwood establishes Guy as the harmless, kind coworker, which we've already talked about. But on page 111, Rocio says, quote, he looks like the harmless love child of a meerkat and an altar boy, when B asks if he's making her feel uncomfortable, which is why I don't even consider him as harmful, you know?
Yeah. Oh my God, I'm sorry. But that description, I forgot it was in that chapter, but that actually made me laugh out loud. Like a meerkat and an altar. How did you come up with that description? I know. But also it makes so much sense.
Yes. And that, another sidebar, makes me love Rocio even more. I think she's so freaking hilarious. Mm-hmm. But again, going back to the point of I didn't even think about him. I didn't even give him a second thought because Ali Hazelwood did such a good job of setting him up as this guy, just her coworker. Mm-hmm. B then has a conversation with Schmack via Twitter, and they talk about their lives. Schmack admits that he fucked up with the girl and that there's a lot of history there. Again, like I said, I live for this because we know it's Levi, and we're getting background on him without B ever really knowing that it's him. But for me, it almost humanizes Levi in a way, which is why I love these conversations. But then it's also interesting too, because it's B doesn't associate Schmack with Levi, so she hasn't humanized Levi yet, but she has all of these tools that she just doesn't know it. And I also just love that we get to see the journey of B falling in love with Levi when we're already in love with him, because we know it's already Schmack is Levi.
Exactly. I think one of my things might be about that.
Okay.
Can I play it?
Yes, for sure.
Page 115 and 116. These people are some of the smartest scientists in the country, and they can't figure out that they're literally talking to each other. Are you kidding me? This is so ridiculous. They're being so stupid.
Yeah, so that was that. But honestly, no, I was at this point, you guys, and it got worse the more it went on. But I mean, we talked about it.
No,
but.
I agree. I feel like Levi should have figured out easily who Marie was, because Levi was being shitty to B and Camel Dick was being mean to Marie. So it's well, you should have put 2 and 2 together. But B decides to go for a run, which, good for her. But she doesn't realize that the cemeteries close at sunset. So she's locked inside with no way out. Rocio isn't answering her phone, and B doesn't want to call 911, which is such a B thing. And I guess I was okay, fine, whatever. Plus, her battery was so low that it was giving me anxiety. So I was B, you just have to do something right now, okay?
Yeah,
you're on 9%, and it's giving me anxiety. Finally, she decides to call Levi. When he answers and B states her name and says that they work together at NASA, and Levi pauses and he's I know who you are, B. I cackled. I don't know why I thought it was so funny, but I feel it's such a B thing to do, especially when she's really nervous. And Levi's of fucking course I know who you are, B. I'm in love with you. Of course I know. I thought it was just so funny.
I really like that moment.
The chapter ends with B, telling him like where she is and what happened. But she doesn't even ask him to come and rescue her before he agrees to come and get her. Like, this man is so in love with her. Like, what the heck? He would drop
anything
really,
to help her.
Yeah. I will say just one thing. I thought it was a bit excessive on page 120 when he said, quote, "I've got you. Don't worry, okay?" I don't know. I thought that was just a little too on the head for me, especially at this point in the book. I guess I want to hear your thoughts on like that, on his dialogue there.
Was that on page 120?
Yes, yep.
Because I have a voice memo from 120, and I'm curious if it's about that.
I
don't remember.
Yeah.
So let me play it, and then I'll give my thoughts if it's not.
Okay.
Page 120. Come on now. He wanted to help her right away. I am such a sucker for that stuff. That's so cute. And she thinks he hates her. Girlfriend. Girl. Shoo.
Okay, so it wasn't about that. But I guess I didn't really think about it before you just said that, but now that you say that, I do agree that it seemed a bit on the head for where we were at.
Yeah.
Like, I got you, don't worry. Like, he already was so desperate to go and help her, so then to say, "I've got you, don't worry," was a lot.
It was. I mean, this is only chapter 8. We're only like 100 pages in. I was like, I don't know. I feel like, yes, maybe you can dismiss it as like, oh, that's just Levi, and now B is getting that side of Levi now that she's actually working with him. But I don't know. For me, it just felt just a little too much. But yeah, that is it for chapter 8. Do you have anything else?
I sure don't.
Okay.
Chapter 9. In chapter 9, Levi rescues B from the cemetery, and B has a realization that she might be a damsel in distress and might actually enjoy it. Then Levi offers her a ride home, only to realize that B has forgotten her keys and can't get them until morning. This prompts Levi to invite B to sleep at his house, which is the place B discovers Levi is not a dad, is not married, but is a vegan just like her. B also states multiple times that this must not be easy for him because she's someone Levi hates, but Levi seems to have a reaction to her saying it every time. I love this chapter so much. Oh my gosh. Okay. So the quote that says, "Oh my God, am I a damsel in distress?" It was so funny to me. Remember when you said earlier, like, throughout the book, we get these little, like, flashbacks of things Tim would say to her. So this is one of those times on page 124. "I'm self-conscious of my legs because Tim said I was bow-legged." I hate Tim. Why are you saying she has bow? Like, what the heck is wrong with you?
I know. I remember reading that. I was like, Tim, you fucker. If I ever see you, it's on site. It's on site. Like, I am ready.
Dang.
I was like, you're so friggin' rude. And it just, we find out more about her and Tim's relationship, which we'll get into later, but it just pissed me off. It just pissed me off.
So, something about you saying on site just gave me life. But you're right. Okay. I literally wrote one of my notes, ha 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 ha. I love that he starts the car and tells her to put on the seatbelt without even giving her a choice. That's so hot. Because he was like, that's so hot. It is. Because he's like, you're not arguing with me. Get in the car, buckle your seatbelt. I'm taking you to my, like, you know.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah, no, I'd be like, no, it's like one of those TikTok trends where it's like, I won't sit down or blah, blah, blah. And then it's like of like Henry Cavill and he says, sit down and like you're sad. It's kind of like that.
I did one of those TikToks.
You did. I know you
Bernard.
did. Bernard. And it's kind of like that where it's like, oh no, like I'm going to get out now and it'll be fine. And then Levi's like, no, sit down, put your seatbelt on. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah, literally. Okay, whatever you say.
Yeah.
Okay, I have a quote on page 129.
Okay.
"The second I see Levi's house, I want to burn it down with a flamethrower because it's perfect." And I love that she just goes on to describe his house and like it's exactly what she would want. And I don't know, that just made me so happy. And it was like foreshadowing, because I was like, okay, you guys are going to be together and you're going to live in this house that she literally thinks is perfect, and it's going to be so happy. I don't know, I just loved that.
It really is. It was like so perfect. Before we can get to the happy ending, we get to the part in the third act, which I won't talk about now, which makes it even worse about what he says about their relationship. But that's a good point. We'll put a pin in it and we'll revisit it.
Great. Okay, there's a quote in this chapter when Bea calls herself a stability slut, and it made me like actually cackle out loud. And I related so much to that. Like, yeah. I think I, too, am a slut for stability. So on page 131, when she literally just goes, where is your family? And then he's so smug. He's like, well, my mom lives here and my dad lives. She was like, not that family, your other family. And he's like, does my father have a secret family? She's like, no, your kid. Where is he? He said, my what? And then I don't know why the way this scene unfolds just gave me life. Like, it's so funny to me.
It is.
Well, and he's literally like, you have it so wrong.
Yeah. Well, it stems from the whole fact of like, oh, she can take a shower in his ensuite bathroom. And she's like, oh, what will his wife think about it or something? Like something ridiculous. Like it's so funny. But also it just tells us a lot about Bea and how like considerate she is, especially after what fucking Tim did to her.
On page 134, when he notes that she needs bug cream without her asking because he noticed her itching her legs a lot. Like, oh my gosh. Like when a man can anticipate your needs, that is sexy.
Theoni, his love language is acts of services, and that's why I love him so much.
No, like, it totally is.
It so is. And again, we get into it later, but it's like he just knows. He just knows. And I'm like, that's so attractive.
It literally is. So she comes downstairs after her shower. You know, her hair's wet. She's wearing his t-shirt. And he says, food will be ... He starts and then stops when he turns around and sees me in the room. I grab 2 fistfuls of my shirt and pretend to curtsy. Thank you for this gown, my good sir. Your ... He sounds hoarse. You're welcome. Food will be ready in 5 minutes. He was so stunned. He was like, oh my God, she looks so hot in my shirt. Yeah, like he could not actually handle himself.
He could not function. But also Bea's like nonchalant about it. She's like, thank you. She's like,
yeah.
Like
so
she doesn't
clueless.
Even, I know, really, she does not even realize. Oh my God.
My good sir. See, I find Bea so relatable. Like, that's the one thing I will say. Ali Hazelwood's female characters, I really relate to them a lot. I related to Olive a lot. And then when Bea does shit like that, it really just, okay. And then when she finds out he's vegan too, where does it go? She goes, this is what it says. Oh my God. He's a vegan, I mutter to myself. He is. I look up. Levi is staring at me with a puzzled, patient expression. And I have no idea how to tell him that this is like the 10th thing we have in common. I don't know why. I cackled out loud when she whispered it to herself because she was like, no way. And he's like, he is. Like, and he heard her. Like, that's so embarrassing.
It is. And then what's even better, she goes to open all his cupboards. She's like, all of this like vegan stuff. It's so funny. It's so funny.
I love it so much. But that's pretty much what I have for chapter 9. So ready for chapter 10?
Yes.
Chapter 10 begins with conducting a demonstration and test of neurostimulation on Guy. This activity earns praise and interest from her peers. Then Bea has lunch with Levi and Guy, which leads to Guy asking Bea out on a date. However, Levi saves the date and tells Guy Bea is married to Tim, which Bea doesn't have a chance to deny because she thinks Levi was just trying to help her. Yep. Next, Bea helps Ro study for the GRE, to which Kaylee joins and sides with them about how dumb it is. So this almost was like a foreshadowing transition chapter to me. Yep. Like it didn't do a ton in the moment, but it also needed to happen because I felt like it helped set up stuff for later. Like between the conversation with the GRE and Guy asking her out, and like the whole thing where she wasn't sure if Levi knew that she, you know, so on page 139, when Guy started singing Britney Spears, I cackled. Again, another small detail that's like, this is the most harmless, like, person ever, you know, like he's just a funny nerdy guy, you know?
Like he's so much fun. He could never do anything so fucking horrible, you know, like,
literally that's exactly what it was. So I'm not gonna go through it totally, but she talks about how her friend Annie had told her about the 3 different kinds of guys, right? So the cute guys, and I like how it all said TM. I just thought that was so funny. So we have like the cute guys, the handsome guys, and the sexy guys. And I love that kind of, you know, it really shows us how she perceives Levi, right? So Levi has now become the sexy guy, okay? The unattainable, like, you know, and like the unattainable person. But then I like how it goes on of how she starts realizing that like he's a little bit of everything, which I really like.
Yes, it was like almost perfect the way that like storyline transitioned into be like, oh, he's everything, which is so cute.
Yep. Yeah, he is everything. Okay. And then I just have to say the whole scene at the picnic or at the lunch table when, you know, Guy asked her out and she like panicked, but then Levi saved the day and she was like, oh, he must know that I'm not married, but he must just be trying to help me out of the situation. And that just gave me so much stress because at that point, again, it just confirmed me. I'm like, Levi doesn't know. He doesn't have any idea, which also makes sense why he's been so hands off, because he's like, she's married and like I literally have to restrain myself. Like it's not like she's some single girl that I can lose myself in. Like she is married, so I have to hold back.
Exactly, and that's another reason why I think that Levi didn't know that that Marie on Twitter was B, because he has this notion that this like girl that he wants is married, and Marie on Twitter is just another random girl, so they can't ever be the same. So it just reinforces the fact that like it makes sense why they don't know it's them on Twitter.
There was a very small interaction between Rocio and Kaylee in this chapter, and that's when I first wrote, Ro clearly has a crush on Kaylee because of the way she looks down and like doesn't know how to act, because we get the background that like Rocio is one of the people who will just say whatever she wants and like doesn't have shame. So then the fact that she did, I was like, something's going on here, you know?
Yes, yeah, I agree.
But that's what I have for chapter 10. Again, not a ton of new stuff, but
nice. Let's get into chapter 11 then. Here is my synopsis. B and Levi are in the lab working late. B asks for the newest blueprints, and Levi directs her to the server, but B says that they aren't there. They make a bet that the blueprints truly aren't on the server. If B is right, she gets a Yoda Best Neuroscientist mug. And if Levi is right, B has to run a 5K. Levi eventually finds them on the server, but in a different folder than they're supposed to be. Boris tells B and Levi that they're going to attend the Human Brain Imaging Conference in New Orleans. The chapter ends with B and Levi arguing about bringing up the file-saving error to the larger team. This was the cutest fucking chapter. Like, this is when I was like, I see it. I see it now. I see the relationship slowly start. And I was like, I was getting so excited. Like, don't get me wrong, I love the stakes and the events that like push the plot forward, but these quiet moments between them were to die for. Like,
literally. And I love a good bet. I love a good bet in a book. It just feels so like flirty and like fun, you know?
Yes. When they're like actually looking for the blueprints on the server and he comes over and stands behind her. I nearly died because again, it's like the little touches, and it was killing me to read.
Literally. So hot. So really hot.
Really unnecessarily so.
No, literally.
Yeah.
And I bet she was like, he is so tall. He just towers over me.
Don't get me started. On page 155, it says, quote, he types quickly, the inside of his elbows brushing against my upper arms. Like, I was like, oh my God, I'm going to throw up. Like,
yeah, literally.
yeah. Oh, okay, sorry. I'm reading my note, and it says, also, while I'm dying about their minimal contact, we find out that the files have been moved, LOL, which is an important part to the plot, but not as important as their touching. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I was like, moved files? Who cares? They're touching.
Yeah. No, but it's so true though. Like, that is where my focus was. Truly.
Yeah. So then eventually, you know, Levi wins the bet because he finds them on the server, just in a different folder that B wasn't looking in. And then at this point, Boris comes in and tells them that they have to go to this conference because MagTech will be there kind of presenting their ideas about the helmet prototype that they have. The chapter ends with Levi walking her home because he's so adamant on it. And he rides a bike too. So he's like pushing his bike while they're like walking together to her house. And I was just like, this man is perfect. This man is
literally
perfect.
Just, it's again the little details that just make it so, I don't know why, but just something is so romantic about walking with a bike like next. I don't know why that stuck with me, but it did.
Yeah. The chapter ends with them discussing if they want to bring up this file saving server issue to the team. B says no, but Levi says yes. In my defense, I would agree with Levi, especially with how touchy and high stakes this project is that like we need to be sure that none of our competitors are getting these blueprints. We need to be sure that no information is slipping through. And it's a very high profile project. So I understand Levi's point. But I also agree with B because they don't know who's at fault. So talking to the entire team isn't fair. And I was wondering if you had like any thoughts on that.
I mean, again, I see both perspectives. I think the thing is I don't think necessarily talking to the whole team would be a bad thing depending on how you talk about it, because it's like, here's an issue going on. I don't know for sure that someone is doing something, but just so you know, this is happening and we either need to be more careful or something needs to be done about it. Yeah. So I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing, because that is a big deal when files are getting moved around and people don't know about it, especially in their line of work. So to me, I just didn't really see it as some big thing that it kind of became between them to have a disagreement about. But I just didn't think it was that big of a deal.
Okay. But that's all that I have for 11. Let's get into 12. So here is a synopsis. B's tweet about the fair graduate admissions blow up on Twitter, and Schmack DMs her about it. B realizes that it's becoming a huge movement, and journalists are asking her for an interview. B and Schmack converse about Camel Dick and the girl, and Schmack admits that the girl is everything that he wants, but there's nothing he can do about it because she's married. The chapter ends with B confronting Levi about telling the team about the file-saving error because he went behind her back to do so. When her tweet blew up, I was surprised because I didn't expect it to be as big of the plot as it really did, which we'll talk about later in the book. But this became like a huge part of the plot. And then she talks with Schmack about the girl, and she gets an update about, you know, how everything's been looking for her and Schmack. And my note says, this shit is crazy because it's revealed that Schmack basically loves this girl, aka V. Like already chapter 12, like Levi is already so in love with her. He says that he knows everything about her, what she likes and dislikes, and all of the above. What baffled me, though, is when he sent the page-length novel about how much he loves this girl. Like, I remember turning the page and, like, gasping. Yes.
Literally, same. No, same, because I was not expecting that, but it made my heart soar.
Me
like,
too.
I was so happy.
He is so head over heels for her. And it was so cute, but also sad, though, because you could tell he really, truly loved her and appreciated her and everything that she does. But he, in his mind, unfortunately, like, thinks that, like, she's married and he can't have her anymore. And it made me so sad. Here are some of my favorite quotes that he wrote in the freaking novel-length message on page 166. It says, quote, "I want to tell her that she's luminous. She's so bright in my mind. Sometimes I can't focus. I want to push her against a wall, and I want her to push back. She's everything I ever wanted, and I want to inject her into my veins, and also to never see her again." Excuse me? That is the most romantic thing I've ever freaking read.
So romantic.
And it just, again, it makes me so sad because Levi deserves to, I know, Levi deserves to be so happy.
I just think about, if I ever found out a man said that about me, how do you function after that?
I would die. I would literally die.
Yeah, I would straight up die. Yeah. Here are my voice memos. This is page 165.
Okay.
So I think I might actually throw up. Page 165. When Schmack, which is literally Levi, let's talk about it, says, "I know what she loves to eat, what shows she watches, what makes her laugh, her opinions on pets. I know her dislikes aside from me. I've been cataloging, I can't even talk. I've been cataloging a million little quirks of hers in my head, and they are enchanting. She is enchanting." And then it goes on, and there are things I think about, but I'm drunk and this is inappropriate.
I also love that he's drunk talking about her. Like, that is just so funny.
Like, he's just drinking on a Thursday night and all he can think about is B. Like, that's, I know.
Okay, I don't know what 166 is, but here's that.
I know I just talked about page 155, but 166. I am unwell. That was the cutest thing I've ever read in my life. And everyone deserves a love like that.
Yes. Well, I sounded like I was legit about to cry.
Again, it also, like, humanizes Levi for us. It doesn't humanize him for B, because, again, B does not know, but I think it's because we know it's Levi. It just makes him, like, I don't know. This chapter ends on a zinger when B finds out that Levi told the team to be more careful about saving files on the server. She confronts him about it and is super upset because he called the meeting when he said he would wait to do so until they had evidence. A part of me was like, B, why are you getting so upset? It's just a meeting. It was literally a 5-minute meeting. That's what Levi and Lamar said. Mm-hmm. 5-minute meeting. But on page 169, when she says, quote, "Because you did it behind my back, just like a month ago, when you didn't tell me about NASA trying to get Blink canceled," end quote. That's when I realized where her wound was coming in, because Tim and Annie also went behind her back all the time. So at this point, I was like, oh, just kidding. This is more than just a 5-minute meeting. This is her wound coming up and showing up in this form that, because Levi went behind her back, she is very upset, which at that point I was like, okay, that makes sense. And I can definitely see why you're upset.
I agree. And I like that as we go along, we start to learn, like, what the motivation is behind her wounds, like you said.
Yes.
And I think that just goes to show, like, Ali Hazelwood's writing skills. Because I think the fact that we can understand that is, like, really cool.
Yes. Again, I feel like Ali Hazelwood stepped up with this book. It feels so much more in depth, character-wise, and, like, character motives. The chapter ends with Levi saying that he'll pick her up at 6 for the conference.
For chapter 13, it's pretty much a transition chapter, so I literally barely have anything.
Okay.
So chapter 13 is a transition chapter. Levi and Bee embark on their road trip to the conference, mostly in comfortable silence, but there's a moment which they open up to each other about their family lives. Then they arrive to the conference only for Bee to panic after seeing Tim and Annie there together. Mm-hmm. I don't feel the need to go into what they said about their families, because obviously if you guys are listening to this, then you've read the book. But I do like that they felt comfortable sharing that much, but then also felt comfortable being silent together, because I feel like that's a sign of a good relationship, is when you can talk, but like you can also be silent and it still feels comfortable or okay. Yep. The only note I have about the chapter is page 175. I literally LOL'd when she said Quasimodos.
You're right.
Like that actually cracked me up. But that's literally chapter 13. I have not one other thing to say about it.
The only thing I'll say about chapter 13 is that I really did like that Levi and Bee had that space and time to connect, because I feel like, again, even though it's a transition chapter, I think we really, really needed that in order to be on board with their relationship.
Yep.
And 100%. It also gave us a lot more knowledge on Bee's wounds, of like how she goes about her life because her parents had died when she was younger, because she had to keep moving and all of that stuff. And then the only other thing is that, like, I shit my pants when Tim and Annie were there too. I was like, are you kidding me? I was like, I was so over it.
This is one of those moments when they're going to the conference and they see these crappy people. Mm-hmm. It just really reminded me too much of the Love Hypothesis. Like when they went to the conference, like it was the same plot device, like the same thing to take their relationship to the next level. So
yeah, I do agree with that the whole conference thing was a turning point for them, but because it happened at a conference, it reminded me of the Love Hypothesis.
Exactly. No. That's chapter 13, and also marks where we're going to end for today's episode.
Yeah, I mean, we still have so much book left to discuss, and the second half is so juicy and spicy.
So juice, so spice. Tune in next week to hear the second half of Love on the Brain.
Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.